Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. We are back for another debate today, and we're going to be talking about Jack Grealish versus James Maddison. Who should Manchester United buy? And I've got two wonderful, that's a V, and I've got another V next to that for wonderful guests with me today. First up, I've got Jay from Full Time Devils. How you doing, mate?
I'm all right, mate. I'm good. I'm looking forward to this one. Do you know what I mean? It's about time we had a big debate, me and Alex. We've not done one for a while.
Yeah. I want you two fighting today. If I have to separate you, I have to separate you, but let's get into it.
This is the sort of fighting I like when we're both in different buildings.
Yeah.
A
long way away.
Yeah. And it has already been mentioned there, in the blue corner, or the red corner. I mean, you're both in the red corner because United fans. In the other red corner is Alex. How you doing, Alex?
I'm all right, yeah. As per usual. Doing all right.
He's doing all right, everyone at home.
Doing all right.
How this is going to work? You're going to have 30 seconds to give your opinion on whether we should sign Jack Grealish or James Maddison. I should say now, Alex, who you after? Who do you want United to sign?
Jack Grealish. And
that, of course, means that Jay wants Man United to sign James Maddison. So, like I said, you're both going to get 30 seconds to put your point across. Jay, you've come into our lovely lives, so I'm going to give you the first 30 seconds here. Okay, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I am.
You're going to explain to us why Manchester United should sign James Maddison. 30 seconds on the clock. Go.
The reason we should sign James Maddison is if you look at the way he's progressed, he's only a young lad. I think he's 23 years old. He keeps getting better and better. He keeps going up in the number of his goal ratio, his assist ratio, just keeps improving. And he's getting better. And he's getting used to the Premier League as well. And we're seeing the effects he's had this season on Leicester City. Leicester City are absolutely flying. And everyone praises Jamie Vardy. Everyone praises Ndidi and plays like that. But people forget Maddison's been a massive part of the reason Leicester have been so successful. And you put him in a Manchester United team alongside the likes of Bruno Fernandes, you're only going to see great things. I think he can take us to that next level.
Very good. Very good. Jay's on it today, Alex. You've got to keep up with that, mate. You've got 30 seconds to say why it's not James Maddison we should be signing, but it is instead old Jackie Boy Grealish. 30 seconds on the clock. Off you go.
Jack Grealish is the exact player that we need to come into Manchester United. He will replace. He's sort of the package that's going to replace Paul Pogba. You've got Bruno Fernandes in there. I think Jack Grealish is the next step. You've seen what he's done with Aston Villa in turn of not only just being their creative link, he's also the captain, leader, and everyone has doubts about him. But since he's come up to Premier League, he's shown what he can do. Fantastic, scoring goals, making assists, and leading the team. He's exactly what Manchester United need.
Perfect timing. Ring-a-ling-ling. Stop that. Right. Two great arguments. I'm going to come in. I'm going to pepper some stats in. I'm going to go into Joe's stat corner for a second, introduce some stats, and then I'm going to get your opinion on these stats. Okay, how's that sound?
Sounds good.
Sounds good, doesn't it? You like the sound of that, don't you? Right. Yeah, so let's get. First of all, let's have a look at James Maddison. Then, like you said, Jay, 23 years old. He's 4 years in first team football, which is sort of important. We'll come to that in a little bit because of how much more Jack Grealish has actually played. Obviously, he came through, made his name at Norwich, and then moved to Leicester. This season, in all competitions, then he's got 9 goals and 3 assists in 34 appearances. He's played a mixture of roles, plays a bit more defensive, plays in number 10, also plays out on the left, similar to Jack Grealish. 2.3 shots per 90, 2.8 key passes per 90, and 1.6 dribbles per game. Now, you mentioned before, Joe, I'm going to come back against one of your points. He said that his stats and his numbers have improved. Well, if you look at last season, he made 2.8 key passes per game, which is the same as this season. 2.3 shots per game, which is the same as this season. 83% pass accuracy, which is the same as this season. So he does seem to have sort of. Do you think he's found his level, or do you think there is still more improvement to be made?
When I said his stats are improving, I think goals per match, I think is 0.21. Last season it was 0.19, which is obviously better. So he's moving in the right direction. And the point is, he's getting better as a player. He's getting older. He's 23. He's only going to improve. And one thing you're going to get with James Maddison that you won't get with Jack Grealish as well is you're taking a player away from one of our main rivals and you're improving our team. Now, Aston Villa aren't one of our rivals. They're not going to be fighting Manchester United for the top 4 spot next season. Leicester will be. And they're going to, if we take a player like James Maddison, who's so effective, who's getting better for them as well, away from them, they're going to struggle to replace him. You can say, oh, well, they replaced Maguire and all the rest of it. But this is a different kettle of fish altogether, especially with Jamie Vardy getting on in years. So you sort of detract him from their attacking prowess. And I think, as you just mentioned there, James Maddison, he's not just an out-and-out number 10. He's not just an out-and-out attacking midfielder. He's someone who could slot in alongside Bruno Fernandes with someone like Fred or McTominay or Matic behind him. We don't have to have this fucking garbage that does my head in of 2 holding midfielders. You can have 2 midfielders in the Manchester United team that aren't defensive. We don't have to have Fred and McTominay, Matic and McTominay, or Fred and Matic or whatever. You can have, let's say Pogba does go, which is more than likely, you can have Maddison and Bruno Fernandes with someone like Fred behind him. And you've got options there. You've got a midfield that does everything you want. It creates chances. It gets stuck in. It's got goals in it. It's got everything. And teams will be looking at it thinking, you know what? We've got a fight in our hands today. Now, I like Jack Grealish. I'm not going to slag him off and say, if he signed for Manchester United, I'd be gutted. But let's not pretend that the kid's not got some baggage with him, should we say. You know, James Maddison, he has a bit of a daft bag that he carries with him and a bit of a daft coat when he gets off the team bus. Looks a bit silly. He doesn't go driving his car around in the middle of a quarantine or whatever it was, or lockdown. He's not a bad boy in inverted commas like Jack Grealish is. Now, I'm not saying that that's a massive detriment to him and that he couldn't sort those things out, but he's going to find himself under a much bigger microscope at Manchester United than he is at Aston Villa. And if he's doing those silly little things at Aston Villa, getting a lot of press, wait till he gets to Manchester United and find out about it. Now, yes, Maddison does veer towards the being a bit lot of sort of boring Tory boy type player that no one's really going to go, look at him, he's a like character, innit? But he does what you want him to do on the football pitch, and that's what matters. I don't care whether he wears his socks around his ankles. What I care about is he going to make Manchester United a better football team? And I think, in terms of this argument, James Maddison is the better, safer option that will improve Manchester United Football Club.
Alex, you heard Jay mention there then about this baggage, this sort of bad boy image that Jack Grealish brings with him to the club. Do you think that not only could affect the way he's portrayed in the media and the way that he plays, but also is it a problem bringing in another player that's going to get a lot of criticism into Manchester United in Jack Grealish?
I think he's going to get criticism either way. I think he's going to get criticism. Whoever comes in is going to get criticism either way. James Maddison, I think we forget that the whole debacle with the England team this year, where he pulled out through injury and then was out on the piss, as in the day of the game. So I think James Maddison isn't the golden boy and all this and all that. And I think, Jack Grealish is going to have that, but I think we do need them kind of personalities around. We've made a lot of nice signings recently. I think we have made a lot. I think Wan-Bissaka fits in that nice signing mold, does the job. Harry Maguire does the same kind of thing. Yeah. And even Bruno as well. I think Jack Grealish is that. You need someone that's a bit of a knobhead. And I think Jack Grealish is potentially that. We've lost our best one last year. We lost Ander Herrera, who was tremendous on the football pitch. Wasn't like that off the pitch. But I think Jack Grealish can be that. I think someone that you mentioned there about him being the 3. I think Jack Grealish does that, I think, better than Maddison. I think Jack Grealish gets around the pitch a bit more. I think he's got a bit more nastiness to him. And I think also the other thing is, like you mentioned, James Maddison fitting in the left-hand side. I think Grealish fits into a front 3 well as well. And I think that, in terms of, because I think either player comes in, I don't think they're guaranteed to start every time. Even if Pogba does even stay, I don't think they're guaranteed. If Pogba stays, they're definitely not guaranteed to start. And what I think Grealish brings in, he could potentially fit into that front 3. He could potentially, if you've got an injury to Martial or Rashford, he could fit on the left-hand side. If we've got Sancho can go over to the left. Grealish can fill it on the right. I think he's got he's got other things. And Maddison, 100 million quid, I've heard going around for James Maddison. Well, I mean, he's good. 100 million.
I will say one thing though, right? On your point there, Alex, which you made about, we've got these sort of players that are nice. Your Brunos, your Odi Nagalos, your Wan-Bissaka. I don't look at it that way. I think what you've got is a bunch of players that want to be at Manchester United, that fit into that ethos, that are mad keen, and the fans are buying into that. And I think Maddison's like that. He's a massive United fan. You go back to his tweets, he was going to games, and I think having that isn't a bad thing. I think having a group of players that the fans actually relate to and like, and are very good at football as well, isn't necessarily a detrimental thing. You don't necessarily have to have a bad boy or a nasty person on the pitch, because, I loved Ander Herrera, but when push came to shove, he didn't want to stick around. And I'd rather have a player that's nice and wants to be at Manchester United.
I think Grealish, and then leaves. I think Grealish wants that as well, though. I think Grealish wants that step up as well. I mean, he's maybe not the fan, he's a boyhood Villa fan. He's never going to not be that. But I think if he steps up now, I think that he still wants to play for Manchester United. He's going to have other options and things like that. So I think that it's not a case of him coming in, and it's not going to be like how Pogba is. People say about his off the field thing. He's not using this as his bad things are him going to be moving on to somewhere else. It's not going to be oh, Grealish is doing this because he wants to go to Real Madrid. Grealish has made that step up. Grealish has done that, and that's where I think he's why I think.
Yeah, and also, like you said, we know who Jack Grealish's club is. We know he's Aston Villa. So if he's leaving them, it's not like
that's a huge thing.
Most clubs, you know, people come to United and think, oh, but if Madrid or Barca come, that's probably their big club when they were a kid, or that's the club to support. We know Jack Grealish supported. We know, you know, that if he's leaving Aston Villa, it's because he wants to go to a bigger club. It's not like he's coming to us and yet he's still got his eye on Aston Villa. He's leaving there for us if he does come. I'll come to you with this then, Jay. Some stats on Jack Grealish here. He's got more the same amount of goals and 3 more assists in 9 and 6 respectively than Jack Grealish. He's also
Jack Grealish.
Than James Maddison. Sorry, so he's got 3 more assists than James Maddison and the same amount of goals in less games this season. He's also he's the most foul player in the league, which obviously means he gets into those positions, takes on players quite a lot. His stats have this season 2.1 shots per 90, 2.7 key passes per 90, 2.2 key dribbles per 90. And then last season in a lower league, he's got the same amount of shots, more key passes, and even more successful dribbles per 90. This is a player that is improving, who has improved more this season than last season compared to James Maddison, and is actually coming up to a more difficult league. Do you think that there's a quality difference there, Jay?
I mean, it's where you look at, yes, I get where you're coming from. Listen, one thing I'm at pains to sort of stress here is I'm not against Jack Grealish, and I don't want, nature to be, people clip this up, don't they, when we sign Jack Grealish and go, oh, Jay didn't even want him, he's slinging him up. Well, it's the case, but in terms of this argument, Jack Grealish has basically got a team built around him. That's Aston Villa is Jack Grealish. You know what I mean? If you've seen it at Old Trafford, our tactic was stop Jack Grealish because he's Aston Villa, and it was only semi-successful. And I rate him, and I thought he impressed me at Old Trafford, especially as you mentioned the fouls he was taking. He kept getting up, but it's a different sort of perspective. You've got to look at it because the entire Aston Villa team is built around him, and he does what he wants. He drifts over to different positions. He drops deep. He presses on. At times, he's almost like a striker. Sometimes, and at other times, he's almost like a defender because he just sort of has this almost free role to do what he wants. And, one stat I'll throw at you, that is he's the only player in Premier League history, I think, to lose 20 consecutive Premier League games. So it's not all been rosy for him. No. But James Maddison, the one stat that impresses me is he's part of a team that are 3rd in the league. He's part of a team that up until Christmas were almost in with a shout of top 2. And he's a big part of that as well. He's a reason that Leicester have had this success. And for all Jack Grealish's stats and his goals and his assists or whatever, he's still in a team that are fighting relegation. James Maddison is in a team that have gone above and beyond what everyone expected of him. And he's part of that as well. And he's the reason that they've done that. So I think, yes, Jack Grealish's stats are great. He's a big player in a big fish in a very small pond, where James Maddison, in terms of the team, is a big player in a big fish. If you get me with metaphors right, big fish in a big pond when it comes to the team, not necessarily the club. I know Leicester and Villa club size are sort of similar, but in terms of the team and where they're performing, one's going for top 4, top 3 cemented. Another one, he's more than likely going to get relegated if this season ever gets completed.
But do you not think that kind of shows how good Grealish has been as well? Like, yes, James Maddison has done this in that team and has created all these chances and all this, and there's all these assists and whatever. But Jack Grealish has got more assists in a team without a very good centre forward. What's Jack Grealish going to do when he's got a Martial? What would Jack Grealish do with a Jamie Vardy in front of him, kind of thing? And with all these players around him, Jack Grealish is, yes, he has to go and do all these things, but he's not got a world-class striker or he's a very good striker ahead of him. He's not got very good wingers he can be playing balls into, and he's not got very good defence behind him helping him out. So he does all this and manages to keep up the numbers as James Maddison's doing. I think we need someone. I think the grit and that kind of it of Jack Grealish and the fact that he's done this in the lower leagues, he's doing it in the Championship as well, is, to be honest, almost a bigger thing than doing it in the Premier League, I think, sometimes. Because for a flair player to go and do it in the Championship, where it's more physical, there's more challenges going in, it's harder league to go through.
But coming back on that though, James Maddison was one of the best players in the Championship. I think he was nominated for Championship Player of the Year when he was in the Championship, and he got a move on the back of it. So it's not like James Maddison hasn't done it in the Championship. He did it to such an extent that he got a move to a bigger club. Now, okay, I get it. Jack Grealish wouldn't leave Villa. He wanted to get them up. So I'm not saying that clubs wouldn't have come in. I think Spurs were in for him, weren't they? And the money wasn't right. But James Maddison has also done it in the Championship. I get where you're coming from, but we've been here before, haven't we? Memphis Depay did it at a lower level and was amazing in Holland. We gave him the number 7 shirt. We brought him over. We expected him to do the same with better players around him. and he'd shine, and he didn't. Now, I'm not saying Jack Grealish should do that, but I don't think just because you do it at a lower team, at a lower level, automatically means you put them in a better team with better players, they're going to do it. It's, it's a very sort of expansive argument that you could go back and forth on. But I think at least with James Maddison, to get the right one, what he can do at a top team. He's already doing it.
If you think maybe where would each respective team be without that piece? So if you took James Maddison out of Leicester, do you think they would be, out of the top 4? Do you think they'd be sort of maybe top 6, mid-table? But if you took Jack Grealish out of Aston Villa, they would be, probably maybe even already relegated.
Villa are second bottom anyway, aren't they? So you take Jack Grealish out, are they going to be what? What do you fucking do? Does it make any difference?
Here's another
point. Go from getting relegated to getting relegated.
Well, getting relegated even worse. Here's another point.
Proper relegated.
Proper relegated.
You well got relegated. That was a right relegation, that one. Ouch.
Here's another point I wanted to make, because one thing that sort of, I know this is kind of an intangible thing, which is why I want to get your opinion on it. But there does feel like there's sort of an X factor, or a kind of this ungraspable kind of feeling about Jack Grealish, where he's got this confidence, he's got this strut on the pitch, he's got this kind of feel to him that he can do something special. He feels like he can win you a game by himself. We saw that last season. I know it was in the Championship, but when he came back from it, he was out for quite a while with an injury, came back, and I think Villa won something like 11 of their last 12 games and got promoted. I think winning the playoffs, and a lot of that was down to him coming back and just going on this ridiculous run of form. Do you think that James Maddison in a big game, let's say a couple of seasons time, we're in a Champions League quarter final against Bayern Munich or something like that? Do you think that James Maddison has it in him to win Manchester United games, Jay?
100%. I think as well, I don't want to keep banging on about this drum, and I know it applies to both players, but I'm talking about James Maddison here. He's getting better. He is, and he's progressed. He's maturing. A 23-year-old midfielder isn't as good usually as he's going to be when he's 24, 25. You see them kick on. You've seen it with all the really good midfielders we've had. And I'm not saying he's as good as him, but I'll use it as an example to prove a point. Roy Keane was amazing at 23, but when he went to his mid and late 20s, he reached another level that you just didn't think was possible. And a lot of good midfielders do that. And I think that James Maddison coming into a team that is progressing, that has got better players probably around him. I know that the league table wouldn't suggest that, but I think the signing of Bruno, and if Mason Greenwood and Marcus and the other players kick on the way we expect them to, would be a better team. I think he'll be progressing along with the team as well. So I think, in 2 or 3 seasons, say we were in a title decider or we're in the Champions League in a knockout game or whatever, just as I expect Marcus Rashford or Mason or Anthony Martial to be stepping up in them games, and expect James Maddison to as well. I think he will progress that way. But this is the point where I get. I also think Jack Grealish could do that. I think he could. I do think I'm not saying Jack Grealish isn't a match winner. And I do think that, if in 3 years' time we're in those games and it was Jack Grealish, yes, I'd be confident that he could do that as well. I just think with James Maddison, I think he's almost slightly underrated because, as I said, he hasn't got that X factor you spoke about. He isn't in a team where he stands out because he's the only good player in that team. He's in a team that's got lots of good players and lots of good midfielders as well. But he still manages to sort of make himself stand out to the point where he's being quoted. I don't know if this is true or not. I know Alex said it, but 100 million for him in a team that's full of decent players, full of top players. So he's doing something right. So going back to the original question, yes, I do believe he can step up in those games.
What do you think, Alex? Do you think that is something that maybe sets them apart? We saw Jack Grealish, obviously, we've seen the types of goals he can score. We saw how he sort of catalysed that promotion push last season at Villa. But James Maddison was the only player to create over 100 chances in the Premier League last season. So do you think maybe they've both got a little bit of that? Or do you think,
I think both players kind of have that. I do think they've both got a bit of it. I think Jack Grealish does it in a different way. I think he is the more brash player of it. It's not how James Maddison is. So I think you can compare. I think we need that kind of personality in the team. But at the same time, James Maddison is a very, very good footballer and does these things. I think you don't know. I think the price tag is going to be a big thing on all this. I think that if Jack Grealish came in at 50 million, you've seen how price tags affect players. I think Jack Grealish at 50 million seems about right. I think everyone kind of goes, yeah, that's what he costs. Wan-Bissaka, same kind of thing. But if United ended up spending £100 million on James Maddison, first off, I don't think we're going to do it because I think Jadon Sancho's top of the list. And I think if they had to choose, we're going to spend 3 figures on one player this summer. I think Jadon Sancho beats all the names linked, Harry Kane, all them. Jadon Sancho is top of that list. But I think if James Maddison did come in for that kind of money, I think that would be a ridiculous amount of pressure on him. I think that would be, you've seen what Pogba did, and Pogba had that personality of I can be the best player in the world. Yeah. James Maddison would have to come in at 100 million plus, and would have to say to us, I'm going to be one of the best midfielders in the world. And for as much as I think he's a very good player, I don't think he's anywhere near that level. So I think that for him coming in and doing that £100 million, whatever it's going to cost to get him out of.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is, I think a lot of this is timing. I think that the James Maddison thing needed to happen probably last summer. I think that was for Manchester United. I think that, we probably could have got him for 50, 60 million, but I think the Harry Maguire deal and all that affected that. I think coming this year, I think he's probably close to signing a contract with Leicester, which is why these big figures are getting thrown around. Yeah. If he hasn't already, I'm not sure if he.
I don't think he has yet.
Anyway, he's not yet, but he's still. That's why these big figures are thrown around.
But do you not think as well, though, he's a massive United fan. If he is signing a new deal, if he stuck a clause in it, 75 million, I'm going.
Potentially,
would they say no?
But that would be. I think that's a year's time. I think the here and now, which is Paul Pogba probably going, because I've had this debate and saying how good he is, and everyone's not denying how good Paul Pogba is. But I think in terms of a money thing of, if he doesn't go this summer, we either have to give him a new contract, which I don't think he's going to sign. So I think he has to go in terms of that to get any decent money out of Paul Pogba. I think we need to replace and we need to add into the midfield this summer. I don't think that James Maddison is going to be feasible. Whereas I think Jack Grealish this year now he's come into the Premier League, has kind of shown he's the player we probably can have. He's at a better price. He's more attainable, and I just think he's the better option to be honest.
I get where you're coming with the price thing. And let's listen, this might sound a crackers thing to say when I'm arguing for James Maddison. He ain't worth 100 million quid. And I don't think we should be spending 100 million quid on James Maddison if those are the figures that are being bandied about. And that's no disrespect to him. I think there's very few midfielders in the world, if any, that are worth 100 million quid. Yeah. But with Grealish, it's a weird one because if you look at it, he's Aston Villa's main saleable asset. And they might look at it and go, if they've got, especially got relegated, all the financial constraints to get, I know you get parachute payments, but it's like they might go the other route and try and play a bit of hardball and try and get more money for him because he's the only real big money player they've got. Whereas Leicester, they've got other options, they've got other midfielders even where they might be able to take 70 million rather than 100 million because that's still a lot of money for them and they've got other options. So it's how that pans out. And there's lots of caveats to this and ifs and buts. You mentioned Jadon Sancho. Jadon Sancho comes in, your front three, it's got to be Marcus Martial and Jadon Sancho. And Jack Grealish sometimes plays as part of a front three, doesn't he, on the left? Yeah, well, that's Marcus's spot, so he's automatically going to be midfield, which is more of some might argue is more of an actual fit for James Maddison than it is for Jack Grealish at times. So there's all ifs and buts and maybes, so it's difficult to sort of pinpoint how much anyone's going to cost and where they're going to slot in. But I think if we can get James Maddison for a reasonable price, not get our pants pulled down, because I know Leicester, the problem with Leicester as well is they're not a club that
they don't need to anymore.
Yeah, this is the thing that I argue about Harry Maguire. They've got owners who are invested in a club emotionally as well, especially after losing their owner. I think it's his son took over. They've always cared about the club and give a toss, unlike our muppets in charge of our club. And yet, yes, they're not mega rich in the terms of the city money or whatever, but they are rich enough to say, hold your horses, we are going to play hardball for a player, as they did with Maguire. So, yeah, there's lots of different sides to this, see where it pans out. I think if United can get Maddison for a reasonable price, then I'm all for it, and I think he'd be the best option.
Right, very good points from both of you there. We're going to give you both another 30 seconds to wrap up your arguments, finalise your arguments, give us that one last push so that the viewers in the comments can agree with either one of you. I'm going to go to you first, Alex. Once again, tell us why Manchester United should sign Jack Grealish. 30 seconds on the clock. You ready?
Yeah.
Off you go.
Jack Grealish, captain Aston Villa, comes in, slots in straight away, fits into that number 10 role. There's an option in the front three. Socks pulled down, quality player, don't need 30 seconds. 100 million is daft for James Maddison. Get Jack Grealish in.
Perfect. There you go. I like that. Sometimes I think that the lack of 30 seconds is a sign of weakness, but in that one, Alex,
it is a sign of weakness.
He used it to his strength there, Jay. He used it to his strength.
Nonsense logic is this?
Well, you've got 30 seconds.
You couldn't fill 30 seconds to tell me why we've got to sign Jack Grealish, and that's a good thing. Well done.
Like 25 minutes.
Normally I don't like it. Normally I don't like it, but on that one, it felt right. It felt right. Yeah, Jay, you've got 30 seconds, and you better use them all now, because if you don't, then we know it is.
I'm 20 seconds. Hey.
You can have an extra 35 seconds. Why we should sign James Maddison. off you go.
I think if you're making arguments based on people pulling the socks around the shin pads, you're in trouble. You know, if we go out and sign Tom Davis, Jesus wept. James Maddison, he does what he says on the tin. He creates goals, he scores goals. He's a player that gets about the pitch as well. And he's done it in a team that is riding high. And he's one of the reasons that they're riding high. He's in a team that where Manchester United, at least next season, should be. We should be in the top 3 at least, and then we can kick on and start looking at a title challenge. That's what James Maddison is about, and that's what he's doing. He's a player that keeps getting better, and he's a big United fan, and people say, oh, who cares? But we've seen the way it is with Gallo. We've got this nice sort of spirit now with Wan-Bissaka and Gallo. There's a real positivity about the club. He can bring that to him. It can bring goals and assists to the club and get us challenging for the top 3, at least.
That was 40 seconds. That was too much. Too much.
I wasted 5 seconds on me. Tom Davis' point. That was
exactly. Right, that's going to be all from us. 2 very good arguments. Jay, where can the people find you?
I'm doing the rounds at the minute in lockdown, so I'm doing bits for you guys. Obviously, on Housen, always involved with Full Time Devils, as you all know. So yeah, just check it out. I'll be popping up on a podcast or whatever coming to you.
Very good. And Alex, of course, we can find him on Stretford Paddock and at @baggers_Alex on Twitter. Let us know in the comments who you think won this debate. This was good. This was fiery, lads. Jay getting really excited.
You know what, though, right? I'm on a hiding to nothing here. This is going to be like, I'm not being negative. This is going to be like an absolute tramme. This is going to be like 6-0 drubbing here because everyone like proper loves Jack Grealish.
But I think, honestly, I think you did the best version of a Madison defense.
I said to Joe as well, just as this came out, someone put on Twitter, a journalist put out, Jack Grealish finalised done.
That's not confirmed. That isn't confirmed.
That's what I mean. No one's going to not want to back you now because he's on his way. And everyone's going to clip me up going, Jack Grealish, yeah, you may as well sign Tom Davis. Yeah.
Tom Daly. Right. Yeah. That's going to be all from us. Again, let us know in the comments who you think won the debate. Very, very well done, everyone at home. Very well done, Jay and Alex. We'll be back tomorrow for the news. We're going to have House and McCullough Uncensored as well, hopefully, and Late Night Live as well. So please do join us for that. We'll see you next time.